He took me back after I cheated, but never promised he'd stay. My name is Jenna and I'm 32 years old. A year ago, my marriage was shattered when my husband, Colin, discovered my affair. That day, the one we quietly refer to as D-Day, was when everything changed. But strangely, it wasn't the end. Colin, despite the betrayal, chose to stay. Or at least he stayed physically. Emotionally, I'm still not sure. In the beginning, I was grateful. I thought if I put in the work, if I showed him I was committed, things could go back to what we had before. We even tried marriage counseling. Every session, though, felt like peeling open wounds with no healing in sight. We'd walk in stable, sometimes even laughing, and come out feeling raw, resentful, and one word away from screaming at each other in the parking lot. Eventually, I suggested we stop. It felt counterproductive, and for once, Colin agreed. That decision brought a surprising wave of peace. For the first time since everything fell apart, we felt like teammates again. We had dinner as a family. We joked. We even started sleeping in the same bed without that quiet wall of resentment between us. Felt like hope. But then came the vacation. A 10-day cross-country trip with our 3 kids, 11-year-old Noah, and our 8-year-old twins, Ava and Chloe. It was supposed to be a reset, a celebration, a second honeymoon with kids in tow. Instead, it was a war zone of tantrums, whining, and ungratefulness. The kids fought endlessly over snacks, screens, even hotel pillows. Colin grew visibly irritated. Before everything happened, he'd been more patient. He'd shrug off their bickering or turn it into a game. But now, his fuse was short, his tone sharp. And me. I fell into my old habits, snapping at him, making sideways comments, rolling my eyes when he didn't handle something how I thought he should. I didn't want to be that way. But I was overwhelmed, disappointed, and on edge. That's how I used to cope, lashing out at Colin when things felt out of control. Back then, he'd swallow it, absorb it. Now, he withdraws, lets down. Our biggest fight happened a few days after we got home. I'd been trying to make plans for Christmas, suggesting we do something different. Maybe skip gifts and focus on an experience instead, something that might teach our kids gratitude. He dismissed the idea immediately, saying he couldn't handle another stressful trip. I felt dismissed too, like every attempt I made to fix things didn't matter. It all came to a head just before my birthday. I turned 40. Milestone. A moment I hoped would feel special. Instead, it was barely acknowledged. Colin was busy with work, busy with the kids. He didn't plan anything. No surprise dinner. No note. Just a regular day. And it broke something in me. I felt invisible. When I brought it up, trying to be vulnerable, he brushed it off, said maybe I could celebrate with my sister instead. Like it was no big deal. When I told him how that made me feel, he admitted something that shook me. That he didn't even know if we'd still be together by the time my birthday rolled around, so he didn't want to make promises. We both cried. I told him how afraid I was. How I felt like I was living with one foot on a trapdoor. He apologized. Said he wanted to try. For 2 weeks after that, things were good again. Almost great. Then we had that conversation. We were lying in bed after breakfast, just being close. I told him I was struggling with the idea that he always had an exit strategy. That I felt like I was on trial, being tested constantly to see if I was good enough to keep. He said he understood, but that leaving had to remain on the table. Because if I ever cheated again, or if I fell back into old habits, he wouldn't stay. He wouldn't suffer in silence like he did before. That conversation gutted me. Since then, everything changed again. I started noticing the way he watched me. The way he noted my moods. If I came home tired and snapped at the kids, I could see it in his face, like he was mentally tallying points against me. I started worrying that every small misstep was grounds for him to walk. I tried sending him articles. Things about recovery, forgiveness, second chances. He barely read them. I planned dates, brought up my birthday again, suggested restaurants. But every time he deferred. Let's see how things go. Always that phrase. Never a commitment. Always a maybe. Eventually I began to spiral. I started wondering if he was preparing to leave. Was he talking to someone else? Was I just a placeholder until he found someone he could actually trust? I began testing him. If he left his dirty dishes in the sink, I'd point it out. If he didn't text when he was running late, I'd say I was annoyed. Normal couple stuff, right? But he'd go quiet, distant. He didn't fight anymore, just shut down. It felt like he was already halfway out the door. Like he was slowly training himself to not care. Then came the final straw. It was a normal Saturday. Puffy. Morning chaos. Noah was whining about going to a playdate. I told him he needed to follow through on his commitments. Colin jumped in, saying maybe we should let him stay home. I snapped, said we were just reinforcing bad behavior, and that this was exactly why our kids acted spoiled. Colin exploded. Said this was exactly what he feared. Me taking my stress out on everyone again. Turning every moment into a battlefield. I told him he was overreacting. That this wasn't about me. That couples disagree on parenting all the time. But he looked at me with this cold, tired expression and said he refused to live like this again. That he'd forgotten how exhausting it was to be around someone who always needed to be right. Who made every argument about control. He started packing that afternoon. He left. Made calls. To his brother. To a lawyer. To the kids' school. I thought he was bluffing. He wasn't. Even my own family didn't take my side the way I expected. My sister said space might be good. My mom said maybe he had a point about my tone sometimes. The divorce took over a year. It was brutal. Colin had records. Screenshots. Notes about my moods. His lawyer painted me as unstable, emotionally reactive, damaging to the children. And the court believed him. Now I see the kids every other weekend and one night a week. And they prefer being at his house. They don't say it, but I feel it. Colin thrived after our split. New house, new schools, calm, structured home. Then Rachel entered the picture. One of the teachers at Ava's school. The kids adore her. She's sweet, patient, thoughtful. Everything I wasn't, apparently. Now they're engaged. Expecting a baby. And me. I live with my parents. I'm trying to start over at 32. Carrying the shame of everything I lost. Every time I see my children laugh with Rachel, every time they talk about their new baby brother, I'm reminded that Colin built the life I was fighting for, just not with me. I used to believe that if you loved someone enough, you could fix anything. But I'm learning now that sometimes, love just isn't enough. Not when forgiveness runs out and someone is already halfway gone.